we're going to take a look at how to create a basic JavaScript object and then how to access the properties within that object. A property is a key value pair. So right down here I've got a bit of code, and all it is an object, and then right down here I'm going to show a couple of ways how we're going to access the property inside that object. Now an object can be created like this, and what we're looking at here with these curly braces is the object, and you can kind of see this as a shell of an object, and inside is nothing. So this is an empty object. Down here I've got that object with a property inside. A property is a key value pair, so the key is right here with the name key string separated by a colon, and following after that is going to be the value that's assigned to that key. In this case we've got a string value because the text that is in there is surrounded by quotation marks. So this here is a string value. This entire key value pair is a property of my object. Now to access the SumString value, there's a couple of ways to do that. First one here I'm going to show you is dot notation, and that's the more common way of accessing object properties. So I've got a reference to the object name, my object, and then using dot notation I reference the property key string, which is inside the my object object, and this here will return the value SumString. Now this will return it. However, if you want to display it or use it in some way, then you're going to have to go ahead and plug this in to something that would allow you to do that. In this case, I am wrapping what is being returned in an alert, and this will create a pop-up when I run this code that will then display the value. The other way to do it is going to be to use bracket notation right down here on line 10. A bit similar. The difference here is obviously there's no dot there, so it's not using dot notation, there's bracket notation with an opening and closing bracket following the reference to the name of the object, my object, and inside of there is the name of the key for the property that we want to access, and it is surrounded by single quotes. Now when I run this, we're going to see SumString for dot notation here, and then we're also going to see it again for bracket notation. Let's go and run it, and it pops up SumString, okay, and then we see SumString there again. Now dot notation is the more common way to access properties inside of an object. However, bracket notation has a couple of things going for it that you wouldn't be able to do with dot notation. To demonstrate this, let me go ahead and create another property inside of this object. Let me delete this comment. Now to add another property in here, I'm going to go ahead and separate the properties with a comma, and then on the next line I'm going to create this property, and it's going to be simply another key, and then it's going to be another string here, so some other string. Since this is the last property in the object, it's not going to have a comma or a semicolon either. So here is another property. This one looks a little bit different though, a little bit weird altogether. If you look at the way this key is named, it's surrounded by quotation marks. It also breaks the rules for variable naming. It's got a space in between it. That's why it's enclosed in these quotation marks. Otherwise it wouldn't work, because that would break variable naming conventions or the variable naming rules. Normally variable names, you'll see something like this. So you got key string, right, and then you got key string, key string, KS, Following along those same guidelines are what we would identify as variable naming rules. There's no space in between. In this case, however, the key name does have a space in between, so it's breaking the variable naming rules, and so we surround them in quotation marks. Now, because of this, to be able to access this property, we would have to use bracket notation. This would not work with dot notation. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how this works. I'm going to comment these out. Let's do alert. Let's say my object dot another key. When I run this, nothing pops up. Right, so I'm running it, but nothing's happening. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and change this to bracket notation. Okay. With single quotes there, and then the closing bracket. Now I'm going to run this again. Some other string, so it returns the value. So let's go ahead and clear that. Now, bracket notation also does something else. It can use concatenation. Let me demonstrate this. So alert, another bracket notation. First, I'm going to go ahead and reference the object, my object. Now I'm going to do another. Okay. And I'll explain what's going on here in just a moment. Now when I run this, I'm going to get the same results. So run. There we go, some other string. I've alerted out inside of my object another key, but this is using string concatenation. And so I've got another, close that up, and then plus sign. And right here I've got empty quotes. This has a space in between here. This will make a big difference. This will not work if there is no space inside of those quotes. So if I run that again, undefined. Basically, it's just not registering. The key, another key, without the space does not exist. So it needs the space plus key. And so that will show us the value for another key. Now inside of an object, you can place different types of values, and pretty much will accept all of the variable values. So your strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, functions. And when you see a key that has a function as the value, that's known as a method, and I'll cover that in another video. However, you can also put inside of an object other objects, and I'll cover that in another video also. So let me demonstrate what these look like. Right now I've got key string, another key, and it's going to put in a number in there. So key, number, and I'll just say 10, and I'll do key, boolean, set that to true. Let's make an array, so key, array, array value 1, array value 2, and array value 3. And then let's go ahead and create a method. Remember, a method is just a property where the value for the key is a function. So here I'm going to say a method function, and inside of the function I'm going to return if a properties value is a function, it is called a method. This one, what's inside of the function, I will put a semicolon at the end to end that statement. And then now I can access these properties. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. I'm just going to use dot notation to get that number for key number. So dot key number, And then when I run that, it gives me 10. Let's do that again. See, 10. Key number. Let's do key boolean. Run that, and it returns true. I do key array. Run that, and it gives me the values that are inside of the array. Now the method, I will cover that in another video of how to access that function.